When it comes to mid-size sedans in America, let's face it, it's become somewhat of a commodity. Everybody offers one, and we know who the big boys are. You have the Nissan Altima, Toyota Camry, and Honda Accord. But since 2000, Kia has been offering the Optima. And for the first two generations from 2000 to 2009, it was a bit of a sleeper, kind of a cheap alternative to those big boys. But then in 2010, they came out with the third generation Optima. It was sleek, it was sexy, and had Blake Griffin flying all over it. It was also very successful. So now we have the 2016 Optima. Now at first glance, you may think, it looks a lot like the old one. Well, that's because Kia knows not to mess with what works. For many mid-size sedan buyers, styling is an important consideration factor, and in my opinion, the Optima is a very sexy looking sedan. For 2016, they made some subtle changes, even though all the sheet metal is completely new. You have new headlights with HID or high intensity discharge lamps. You have a new, bigger, bolder grille, and you have new LED taillights. Now, one thing that they did keep, which was kind of a signature cue of the old Optima, is this thing right here. They have this chrome ring that goes all the way, the whole length of the car pretty much, from the hood all the way back to the trunk, and this kind of gives it kind of a border. Kia's customers loved it in the old Optima, and guess what? It's back in the new one. For 2016, Kia has added a third engine option to their lineup. So the old model had a turbo, and that's what we have here. This is the 2.0 turbo. It's the big boy, 245 horsepower and 260 pound-feet of torque. That's class-leading torque among all the competitors. The base engine, which is the one most people are going to buy, is a 2.4 liter normally aspirated. That has 185 horsepower, which is also class-leading. But the new engine option is an all-new 1.6 liter four-cylinder turbocharged engine. It gets 178 horsepower and 195 pound-feet of torque. It also gets a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission, whereas the other two engines get a traditional 6-speed automatic transmission. Another consideration factor for mid-size sedan buyers is safety and technology. Let's talk technology. You have devices, you got to charge them up. There are 3 USB ports, one up front, one in the armrest, and one in the back for rear seat passengers. You also have Android Auto and soon Apple CarPlay. Finally. You also have some cool safety features: bi-xenon headlights, smart cruise control, electronic brake new for the 2016 model, and lane departure warning, just to name a few. Kia is a car company that is definitely focused on technology and safety, and it shows in the 2016 Kia Optima. We were very impressed with how the Optima handled on these roads. You can definitely tell that all the improvements they made, which you really can't see, things like stiffening up the suspension and stiffening up the chassis by 150%, really come to play on roads like this. You have paddle shifters on the Sport model, and that came in very handy. We also went from normal to sport mode, and what that does, it changes the steering dynamics, the steering ratio, also the throttle response. So these are kind of things you usually find in more expensive cars, but Kia wants you to know that they care about how their vehicles drive. They already have great warranties, but they also want you to know that these things can be fun to drive, and this thing was a lot of fun to drive. And one thing I didn't like was I felt like the seat and the steering wheel were not quite lined up. So if you look at where I'm lined up here, my center of my torso to the center of the steering wheel, I feel like it's off center by, who knows, maybe about ½ an inch to an inch. We didn't measure it, but that's just kind of what it felt like. Overall, the cockpit is angled towards the driver, and that's again something you find in sportier cars like BMWs and Porsches, and that creates kind of this driver's cockpit area. Again, very few complaints. You know, if there was another complaint, it would be the price of the top-end model. It's up near $38,000, and that's getting pretty pricey for a mid-size sedan. I think they probably should have topped that off at $35,000, but this is the SXL model. There's an SX, which is a few grand less. I got to tell you, I was a little skeptical when Kia said, come up to Aspen, Colorado and drive the all-new Optima. It's a much better handling car. Well, we did, and it is a better car, and there's a reason for that. The driving dynamics have been completely rethought thanks to a guy who ran something called BMW M Division. That's right, the high performance division of BMW now has a little bit something going on in these cars and more in the future. Overall, I think they've done an amazing job. When you factor in the 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, the great styling, the great performance, I think Kia is a vehicle that should definitely be on your shopping list, especially the Optima for midsize sedans. Thanks for watching. I'm Ron Doran. We'll see you next time on The Driver's Seat.